So, do you remember She-Ra? Well, you probably remember her twin brother, He-Man. Yeah, back in the 80s when He-Man was really big, someone at Mattel came to the conclusion that they might make even more money if they introduced a female counterpart to him to appeal better to a girl demographic, considering that He-Man was mostly popular with boys. Of course, the way I put it makes it sound rather cynical. And truth be told, I do think that the idea behind She-Ra is cynical. Frankly, I don't care much for the Masters of the Universe franchise in general. The original He-Man cartoon didn't age really well. There's some fun to be had with it, simply because it is incredibly cheesy and stupid at times, but really don't tell me it's one of the best cartoons of all time. Well, I would say it's easily one of the most influential and maybe one of the best of the 80s, but 80s cartoons are all kinda weird. I think similar about the original She-Ra cartoon. More of the same cheese, only for girls. Frankly, I never really considered She-Ra that big of a deal. More an oddity along the lines of, hey, did you know that He-Man has a twin sister? Now, to be fair, this only has been my impression of both shows, and I only watched a couple of random episodes during reruns in the late 90s when I was a kid. I was a young boy, so of course I thought that all girl stuff is stupid anyway. I think one look at my channel should tell you that I think differently nowadays. But in the end, we are not here to discuss the quality of the original She-Ra cartoon. Instead, we're gonna talk about the 2018 reboot! Admittedly, it did somewhat irritate me that they went ahead to produce a She-Ra cartoon completely independent from the Masters of the Universe franchise, with barely any reference to He-Man whatsoever. But then again, this of course helps She-Ra to develop her own identity, to be more than simply He-Man's twin sister, and hey, maybe they can introduce him or Skeletor in a later season, once they get that legal mumbo-jumbo out of the way, which apparently prevents that. Now, here's perhaps a thing I want to talk about the least. The character designs, or rather that stupid controversy surrounding them. Yeah, the show took some great liberty with those. Most characters look completely different from their original incarnation. She-Ra probably got the most flack because she is the main character and all, but other redesigns were certainly more drastic. Now, frankly, I don't particularly care about that discussion and rather just tell you what I think of the character designs. I like them. The simple and somewhat anime-ish character design works pretty well for me. I think most characters simply look more creative and fun than their original counterparts. But then again, I don't particularly care for the original show, so if you think some characters should be depicted more like their original self, be my guest, but I also think it's a bit of a stretch to call them the same characters. I consider the whole show more of its own thing anyway. Next up's the animation. It's pretty good, I guess. There was nothing that really struck me as negative. The fight scenes were fun to watch, but I can't remember anything that really stood out to me. The backgrounds look very pretty though, so yeah, above average to good I guess. And now let's talk about the plot. The first season has 13 episodes, with the first 2 to 3 serving as an introduction arc. We get to know the main characters. Adora defects from the Horde, finds the magic sword that turns into She-Ra, and she joins the Princess Alliance. Afterwards the show becomes a bit more episodic. She-Ra, Glimmer and Bow go somewhere to recruit another princess to their cause. At first they don't want to, for various reasons, until they help them to solve some problem. That goes on for another 4 episodes until things go south in episode 8, which slowly leads into the season finale. It works pretty well actually. There's an overarching storyline, but the episodes are for the most part self-contained enough to stand on their own. They are very much episodes with a well-defined beginning, middle and end. This is a bit of a problem I noticed with some more serialized shows I've watched lately, with Dragon Prince maybe being the worst offender. You cannot judge any particular episode of that show on its own merit, as the plot just kinda keeps going and going at a rather slow pace. Every She-Ra episode furthers the plot and you can't really watch them out of order, but this show would still work pretty well if you were to air 1 episode a week on TV, and frankly I think the show would have benefited from that overall. Now I compared the show with Dragon Prince for several reasons. For one, both are Netflix originals, but more importantly both took some inspiration from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Not really surprising with the Dragon Prince, considering that the show is produced by former Avatar staff, but I think it is also rather apparent in She-Ra. For all intent and purposes, She-Ra, the Princess of Power, is basically the Avatar. She's supposed to bring balance, there's a reincarnation circle, and Adora even has to go through the whole spiel where she's supposed to abandon her personal relationships to achieve her true potential, like Aang did during the season 2 finale. Especially the latter felt a bit too similar for my taste, but I suppose there are certainly worse things to copy. Furthermore, Catra is treated in a similar way to Zuko, as she practically serves as the show's protagonist who is at odds with the hero, with conflicting loyalties and a tragic past. So the similarities are there, but things are different enough that I wouldn't call it a ripoff. The plot is in the end very much its own thing, if in the end somewhat simple, but I think that works in the show's favor, as it remembered the most important thing when copying Avatar. In the end it's supposed to be fun. Avatar is often used as an example for complex story and its mature themes, but people often forget the well-played comedy, fun characters and action that makes everything engaging in the first place. She-Ra has those too, maybe not as great as Avatar, but good enough. No, your mileage may vary based on your personal taste. As far as I get it, not everyone likes Glimmer, and I can somewhat see why, but she got some chuckles out of me, so I give her a pass. In any case, maybe we should talk about the main character. I like Adora well enough, though I think I like her more in concept than execution. Her past is very much defined by the fact that she has been raised to become a high-ranking soldier of the Horde, completely oblivious to the fact that they were evil, with her whole worldview being shattered when she learns the truth, becoming a rebel and fighting against her former friends, while also learning to appreciate the beauty of the outside world she never saw before, and I would even dare to say to discover her own femininity. Some of that stuff gets explored rather well, mostly that she has no clue whatsoever about anything that is directly combat related, and how she is actually very much into girly stuff and show some decent character development in that regard throughout the first season. On the other hand, while her past plays an important role in the story, she shrugs the whole thing off surprisingly quickly. For one, the idea is that she has been indoctrinated her entire life that the princesses are evil and the Horde is good, which kinda falls flat considering how obviously evil the Horde is. When your foster parent is named Shadow Weaver, that's usually not a good sign. It is probably best summed up by Catra.
I'm saying this is wrong. They've been lying to us, manipulating us, Hordak, Shadow Weaver, all of them. Duh!
Even more problematic is though how fast she and everyone else get over it. After episode 3, everyone pretty much trusts this former Horde soldier without question, and She-Ra barely brings up that she has been manipulated her whole life. It just seems to me that she should be way more conflicted, but nope. Admittedly, I think the writers just wanted to get that one out of the way as quickly as possible and focus more on the fun stuff, but it still feels a bit like wasted potential. The funny thing is that Adora in the original cartoon was apparently mind-controlled and only turned good after she was freed, which makes her quick turn from evil to good, ironically enough, a bit more believable. But the one thing that truly defines Adora is her relationship with Catra. They were best friends in childhood, but now they are on opposite sides. Their relationship gets explored a lot throughout the first season, and it shows how they sort of depend on each other. Catra more so than Adora. Yeah, there certainly is enough subtext to make it apparent that they were maybe a bit closer than just friends. Though, on the other hand, nothing is really explicit. So, if it really bothers you, I suppose you can still ignore it. Personally, I don't mind it. Frankly, I would appreciate it if the show would just say it outright instead of only teasing it all the time, because as things are, I'm pretty sure they will probably tease it until the last episode in which Adora and the redeemed Catra will finally kiss, cause that's how cartoons do it nowadays. Now, besides that, I have to say that Catra is easily my favorite character in the show. She has a very awesome character design, and come to think about it, I think I never heard anyone complaining about her redesign, even though it's one of the more drastic. And she's just a lot of fun. She can be rather silly and cute, but when needed to, she can be somewhat scary and threatening. Now, while I do think that Adora's and Catra's complex relationship is rather fascinating, I think it doesn't always work so well. Especially Catra's motivation just seems to be full of contradictions. The only thing that made her life in the Horde bearable was Adora, as she was an outcast with a lot of people picking on her because she was different, you know, being the only furry of the group and so on. Not helping was that Shadow Weaver didn't think highly of Catra as well, and even though she was the most capable recruit after Adora. Not entirely unjustified, at least later on, as Catra slacked off all the time and showed little motivation to prove Shadow Weaver wrong. Suddenly she decides to pick the Horde over her friendship with Adora when Adora defects. Now, this is somewhat addressed in a later episode when it is explained that she always felt like she was living in Adora's shadow, and while she sorta depends on her, she also had a bit of a grudge against her because of that. So okay, with some contrived logic I can understand that reasoning, but her sudden ambition that was non-existent in the first 2 episodes just strikes me as odd. Even more so because the entire plot relies on her being named Force Captain by Hordak directly, for no good reason whatsoever. I mean, Hordak wants a new Force Captain. Okay, but you can't tell me that the only possible candidates for that position are some teenagers with no actual battlefield experience, and that he has to promote the cat girl who, according to Shadow Weaver, the one he put in charge of training new Force Captains, is completely unqualified for the position. Catra's promotion to Force Captain feels contrived as a result. Now, it would be different if she had done something that proves Shadow Weaver wrong and wins Hordak's trust, kinda like she does in a later episode, but since Catra at this point did nothing to prove her value, it is forced storytelling at best. Also, speaking of Hordak, can we get more of him in the future? He's barely in the show. Now, another thing that somewhat irritates me is how every princess outside of Bright Moon treats the Horde like they are not really their problem, which seems to be another somewhat forced setup to justify that Adora has to go around and gain the trust of the other princesses to join her alliance by convincing them that the obviously evil Horde that wages war against all of them for over a decade is indeed a threat to all of them. Yeah, I don't quite understand that one either. This is not Game of Thrones. Political intrigue is non-existent here. It's plain as black and white that they can't just ignore the Horde. Luckily, they all came to their senses just in time to save the day during the season finale, so I'm pretty sure this won't be a problem in future seasons anymore. And I guess this is a good point to wrap things up. She-Ra and the Princesses of Power is a fun show. Really, I have little to say about it that is actually negative. There are a few minor problems with the plot, but compared to other shows they are neglectable, and it is more concerned with being a fun and exciting ride. I don't think that the intention behind the show was to be a faithful reimagining of the original and instead being more of its own thing. I do hope that we maybe get an appearance of He-Man and Skeletor in the show someday, and just to be clear, this show is aimed at girls. There's nothing wrong with that, and guys can still like it. Heck, I like it. But sometimes it's just okay to say that something is not your cup of tea. It doesn't automatically mean that the show is bad. If you don't mind a show about some girl power with likable characters, decent comedy and action, I would recommend checking it out. I had a good time watching it, and now I have to sit down and watch season 2 because this video is overdue. But what about you? Did you watch She-Ra? Did you like it? Did you maybe even watch the original? Let me know in the comments below. I am Tricky Fox. Stay foxy.
Sly as a fox, you got me under your spell. But you know I'll never tell that I know you know so well. Sometimes